Tell me, have you ever imagined winning the lottery? What if Neville Goddard's secret could make it real? I want you to imagine something right now. Imagine yourself holding that winning lottery ticket in your hands. Feel the weight of it, the texture of the paper between your fingers. You look at the numbers, and they match. Your heart races, your hands tremble with excitement, and a surge of overwhelming joy washes over you. The realization sinks in. You have won. The financial freedom, the opportunities, the ability to do anything you desire, it is all yours. The question is, how does this become a reality? How does something that seems like pure chance bend to the power of your mind? The key lies in the power of assumption. What the mind assumes to be true becomes reality. There is no separation between thought and manifestation, no gap between imagination and physical form. Except for the limitations one places upon oneself. The mistake most people make is believing that their desires exist outside of them, somewhere in the distant future, something they must chase or hope for. But what if the process was reversed? What if instead of waiting for proof, you assumed it was already done? Thought precedes experience. Every event, every outcome, every success, and every failure begins first in the unseen realm of the mind. There is no external force deciding who wins and who loses, who thrives and who struggles. Instead, the determining factor is what is accepted as truth within. The mind is the creator, the architect of circumstances, and the source of all outcomes. If the mind believes that winning is an unattainable miracle, then it shall remain so. If the mind accepts winning as an inevitable truth, then the path unfolds accordingly. To bring this understanding into practice, one must first assume the state of the fulfilled desire. This is not a fleeting thought or a mere wish. It is a deep, unwavering conviction. It is the embodiment of the feeling of success before the evidence appears. It is stepping into the identity of one who has already received, already experienced, already achieved. This is not daydreaming, it is the conscious shifting of awareness into a new reality. Reality is nothing more than a reflection of inner conviction. To alter the outer world, one must first shift the inner state. This is where most fail. They allow the five senses to dictate belief. They look at a bank account and see numbers that do not align with wealth, and they assume lack. They check lottery results and see a loss, and they assume failure. But the senses only reflect past assumptions, past beliefs. The visible world is nothing but a delayed projection of what has already been accepted internally. To change the future, one must change the assumption now, not later. The practice is simple yet profound. Each night, before sleep, the state of mind must be shifted into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The moment before sleep is the bridge between the conscious and subconscious mind. In this state, the subconscious is most receptive, and it is here that the new reality must be impressed. As the body relaxes and drifts into rest, the mind must be directed toward the experience of having already won. Feel it deeply. Allow the emotions to rise naturally. Hear the sounds of celebration. Feel the excitement. Let gratitude fill every cell. The mind does not differentiate between imagination and reality. It simply responds to what is deeply felt as true. If repeated consistently, the subconscious mind accepts this assumption, and the external world begins to shift to reflect it. Doubt is the greatest obstacle. The mind, conditioned by years of logic and limitation, will resist. It will argue that winning is rare, that odds are fixed, that there is no logical reason to believe in something unseen. But logic has no place in creation. The world is not shaped by probabilities, it is shaped by consciousness. Every great achievement, every success story, every miraculous outcome defied logic before it became reality. The mind must be trained to persist beyond the illusion of doubt. There must also be a detachment from the method. The conscious mind may attempt to control the how of manifestation, but this is unnecessary. It is not the role of the individual to determine the path. only to assume the end. The means by which the assumption becomes reality will unfold naturally. Some may win directly, some may receive wealth through unexpected avenues, but the form does not matter. The only thing that matters is the conviction that the outcome is certain. Once this is accepted, the pieces rearrange themselves accordingly. One must also be mindful of words and thoughts throughout the day. Every statement, every belief expressed outwardly reinforces an internal assumption. If one constantly speaks of struggle, of bad luck, of slim chances, then that is the reality being reinforced. Speech must align with the assumption of success. It is not about wishful thinking, it is about certainty. The words spoken must reflect a reality that is already true. I always receive abundance. Wealth flows to me effortlessly. Winning is natural for me. These are not affirmations of hope, but declarations of truth. There is also great power in gratitude. Gratitude is not just an emotional state. It is an act of creation. When one expresses genuine gratitude for something not yet visible, they are confirming its reality before it appears. This is an essential component of assumption. The feeling of thankfulness should arise naturally when visualizing the fulfillment of the desire. Instead of yearning, there must be appreciation. Instead of seeking, there must be knowing. Gratitude signals to the subconscious that the desire has already been fulfilled, and the subconscious, being impersonal, ensures that the external world conforms. Patience is required, but patience is not waiting. Waiting implies that something is missing. Patience is the quiet confidence that what is unseen will soon be seen. It is the unwavering trust that the assumption will harden into fact. Many fail because they check for results too soon, doubting when they do not see immediate evidence. But the process is certain. The seed does not grow the moment it is planted. The assumption does not manifest the moment it is adopted. But with persistence, what is assumed will become what is experienced. The truth is simple. Reality is malleable, shaped entirely by what is assumed to be true. Winning is not about numbers or odds. It is about alignment. The moment the mind fully accepts a new state as reality, the outer world must reflect it. It is an unbreakable law. There is no force outside of one's self-controlling destiny. There is only the self, the assumption, and the inevitable manifestation that follows. Fear and doubt are the great thieves of manifestation. They creep in unnoticed, disguising themselves as logic, realism, or common sense. They whisper that the odds are too low, that winning is rare, that money is hard to come by, that success is reserved for others. They convince the mind to accept a reality of limitation, and once accepted, that limitation becomes absolute. The greatest challenge in the process of creation is not the external world, not the numbers on a ticket, not the competition. It is the internal battle between certainty and fear. Everything seen in life is nothing more than a reflection of what has been assumed within. If a person believes that wealth is difficult to attain, their reality will reflect that belief. If a person assumes that winning is impossible, then it remains so. The external world does not act independently. It follows the blueprint set by the mind. Every failure, every success, every experience is first constructed in thought before it materializes in physical form. The challenge then is to remove the interference of fear and replace it with unwavering faith. Doubt arises because the mind has been conditioned to trust only in what it can see. It looks for proof before belief, evidence before assumption. But this is the opposite of how creation works. The unseen always precedes the seen. A tree does not appear before the seed is planted. A building does not stand before it is designed. A reality cannot manifest before it is assumed as true. Yet the mind, accustomed to the limitations of the senses, demands to see results before it commits to belief. This is the trap that keeps many from their desires. They waver, they hesitate, they question, and in doing so they delay or even prevent their own success. To truly manifest anything, there must be complete certainty. Not hope, not wishful thinking, not a passive desire, but an absolute knowing. There must be an internal shift so deep and so profound that even in the absence of visible proof, the outcome is already accepted. There is no room for second guessing, no space for contradiction. The state of mind must be so fixed in the assumption of success that any opposing thought dissolves instantly. The one who succeeds is not the one who wishes, but the one who knows. Fear exists only when a person identifies with a state of lack. If one plays the lottery with the belief that they are currently lacking wealth and they desperately need to win, they are reinforcing the very state they wish to escape. The mind is dwelling on the absence of money rather than the presence of it. And because the mind creates reality, it perpetuates that lack. The shift must be made from wanting to having, from needing to receiving. The focus must not be on the problem, but on the solution, not on the desire, but on the fulfillment of it. The moment a person stops trying to win and instead assumes they have already won, their reality begins to change. Doubt is the seed of failure. The moment one entertains the thought, what if it doesn't happen? They are already setting themselves on the path of disappointment. Every thought carries weight. Every assumption is a cause that produces an effect. If there is even a small part of the mind that believes in failure, that part will manifest just as surely as the desire for success. There can be no divided mind. The assumption must be whole, complete, and unwavering. Many people allow external circumstances to dictate their beliefs. They see past failures, they hear statistics, they remember times when things did not work out, and they use this information as proof that their desires are unlikely to manifest. But the past is only a reflection of old assumptions, and statistics are irrelevant to the individual. There is no law that states what has happened before must happen again. There is no universal rule that limits success to only a few. Reality reshapes itself the moment a new assumption is fully accepted. The only thing preventing a new outcome is the unwillingness to let go of the old beliefs that have created the current experience. The key to dissolving doubt is repetition. The mind must be reconditioned, trained to accept a new state of being. This is not done through force, but through persistent assumption. Every time doubt arises, it must be immediately replaced with certainty. Every time fear whispers, it must be drowned out with faith. It is a process of mental discipline, an intentional redirection of focus. This is why assumption must be practiced daily. It is not enough to think positively once or twice and then allow old habits of thought to take over. The assumption of success must become second nature, an unshakable truth that remains regardless of what the external world appears to show. One of the most powerful ways to strengthen this assumption is through mental rehearsal. Each day one must take time to step into the experience of already having received, not as a hope, not as a wish, but as a reality. The mind must be saturated with the feeling of fulfillment. The senses must be engaged. The sight, the sound, the touch, the emotion of victory must be experienced so vividly that it becomes indistinguishable from physical reality. In doing so, the subconscious mind is impressed with this assumption, and once impressed, it will project that assumption onto the world. The external world is not separate from the internal. It is not an independent force randomly deciding outcomes. It is a mirror, reflecting back whatever is most deeply held within. If fear and doubt dominate the mind, the mirror reflects struggle. If confidence and certainty fill the consciousness, the mirror reflects success. There is no mystery in this process, no randomness, no luck. There is only cause and effect, assumption and manifestation. To allow doubt to persist is to sabotage one's own creation. To entertain fear is to invite failure. But to assume success so completely that no other reality is possible is to guarantee its manifestation. The only limitation is belief. The only obstacle is hesitation. The only requirement is certainty. Once this truth is fully understood and applied, the external world has no choice but to align accordingly. To experience any desired outcome, the mind must dwell in the state of its fulfillment. There is no other way. The world, though appearing solid and external, is nothing more than a projection of internal states. It reflects back only what has been assumed within. If one wishes to change any condition in life, the change must first take place in the unseen realm of consciousness. The mistake most people make is looking outward for confirmation before they allow themselves to believe in their desired reality. But creation does not work this way. The visible world is always a delayed reflection of the unseen. To wait for proof before assuming success is to ensure that success never comes. The key is to live in the end, to think, feel, and act as if the desire has already been realized. To live in the end means to take possession of the wish fulfilled within consciousness. It is not about pretending or forcing external actions. It is about shifting the internal awareness so completely that there is no difference between imagination and reality. The assumption of being must precede the experience of becoming. This is the great secret that governs all manifestation. Those who continue to identify with the lack of their desire will remain in that state, for the external world cannot offer what has not been first accepted within. Most people believe they must work toward their desires, that they must strive, struggle, and prove themselves worthy of success. But effort is not the key. Assumption is. It is not about doing, but about being. The state of already having must be assumed before it can be seen. If a person desires wealth but continues to think and feel as one who lacks, they will never escape their current state. They may attempt to work harder, seek more opportunities, or hope for luck, but unless they assume the state of wealth within, their outer reality will remain unchanged. The only way to truly receive is to first become. To understand this principle, one must observe how easily people live in states unconsciously. A person who identifies as unlucky does not need to remind themselves of their misfortune. They assume it naturally. They expect disappointment, anticipate failure, and as a result, they continue to experience these conditions. The world mirrors their inner conviction. They do not struggle to manifest hardship. It comes effortlessly because they have accepted it as true. In the same way, if one were to assume the state of having already won, if they were to truly believe it with the same ease, their reality would shift accordingly. The difficulty is not in the process itself, but in breaking the habit of identifying with the old self. Most people have spent years, even lifetimes, reinforcing beliefs of limitation. They have looked at circumstances and allowed them to dictate their internal state, never realizing that their assumptions were the cause, not the effect. To live in the end requires discipline, a conscious choice to remain faithful to the unseen, even when the senses suggest otherwise. It is a deliberate turning away from what appears to be in favor of what is known within. The moment this shift is made, the external world begins to rearrange itself to match the new assumption. Living in the end does not mean waiting. Waiting implies separation, a gap between now and the fulfillment of the desire. But there is no gap, no delay. There's only the state that is assumed in this very moment. If a person believes their success is coming in the future, they are unconsciously affirming that it is not here now. And as a result, it remains in the future, always just out of reach. To bring a desire into experience, it must be claimed now. The assumption must be made so fully that it feels natural, so deeply that no effort is required to maintain it. It must become the only truth, the only reality, regardless of what the eyes see or the ears hear. The mind, conditioned by years of looking outward for validation, will resist at first. It will demand proof, question the process, and attempt to return to the familiar state of doubt. But proof comes only after assumption, never before. The moment one assumes fully, without contradiction, the desire is already secured. The external world must conform. It has no choice. Just as a shadow follows the body, so too does the external world follow the assumptions held within. There is no need to chase, no need to force. The only work required is the inner shift from wanting to having, from seeking to being. One who understands this principle no longer depends on circumstances for reassurance. They do not check for signs or measure their progress because they know that the world cannot fail to reflect their inner state. The seed, once planted, does not need to be dug up and examined daily. It is trusted to grow. In the same way, the assumption of the fulfilled desire must be trusted without hesitation. The moment one starts looking for evidence, they reveal their doubt, and doubt delays the process. Instead, one must persist in the state of already having, knowing that the reflection will come in due time. Many fail because they allow themselves to be swayed by appearances. They accept the testimony of the senses as final, believing that what they see now is unchangeable, that the world is fluid, ever-changing, molded by the convictions held within. If an unwanted condition persists, it is only because it continues to be accepted as real. The instant a new assumption is made with full conviction, reality begins to shift. The change may not be visible immediately, just as a seed does not sprout the moment it is planted, but it is inevitable. Those who persist in the assumption of the wish fulfilled will always see their desires materialize. Every great transformation in history, every success story, every so-called miracle follows this same law. There is no external force granting or denying desires. The only determining factor is the assumption held within. Those who have mastered this truth do not depend on luck, chance, or circumstances. They live in the end knowing that what they assume must come to pass. They do not wish for success, they assume it. They do not wait for proof, they create it. They do not react to the world, they shape it. The secret is simple. Assume the state of the fulfilled desire, persist in that assumption, and the world will conform. It cannot be otherwise. Words carry power not because of their sound or structure, but because they are expressions of belief. Every spoken word is a declaration of an internal state, a verbal confirmation of what the mind accepts as true. Words are not empty expressions. They shape reality just as surely as thought does. The one who speaks with authority over their own life commands their world into alignment with their assumptions. The careless use of words, however, is one of the greatest obstacles to manifestation. Many speak without awareness, unaware that their words are setting into motion the very circumstances they wish to avoid. Every word spoken reinforces a state of being. If a person constantly speaks of struggle, lack, and limitation, they are affirming those conditions and ensuring their continuation. It does not matter if the words are said in jest or if they are meant as casual conversation. The subconscious mind does not differentiate between serious statements and playful remarks. It accepts all words as truth and molds reality accordingly. This is why it is crucial to speak only from the state of the fulfilled desire. The words that leave the mouth must match the reality that one wishes to experience, not the reality that currently appears. Most people make the mistake of describing life as it is, rather than as they wish it to be. They say, "I never have good luck, I can't seem to win, things never work out for me," and they believe they are merely stating facts. But what they fail to realize is that these so-called facts are not fixed. They are self-imposed limitations being reinforced through speech. If these same individuals were to change their words, if they were to declare, "Fortune always finds me," "Success is natural for me," "Everything works in my favor," their world would shift to match these declarations. The outer world is nothing more than an echo of what has been impressed upon the subconscious. And words are one of the primary tools of that impression. The words spoken most frequently become the strongest beliefs. Every repetition strengthens an assumption. The one who consistently speaks of their success, their confidence, their certainty in their desires, is reinforcing that reality until it becomes undeniable. The one who constantly speaks of their doubts, their fears, and their perceived failures is doing the same, but in the direction of undesired outcomes. The law is impersonal. It does not distinguish between positive or negative assumptions. It simply brings forth whatever is most deeply affirmed. This is why conscious control of words is essential. The disciplined mind refuses to speak words that contradict its desires. It does not entertain idle complaints or casual statements of limitation. It uses words deliberately, knowing that each spoken declaration is an instruction to the subconscious mind. Silence is often more powerful than careless speech. Many people feel the need to constantly discuss their problems, to explain their struggles, to seek validation for their difficulties. But in doing so, they are merely keeping those conditions alive. The subconscious listens to all words, whether they are spoken to oneself or to others. The more a problem is discussed, the more it is cemented into reality. It is far better to remain silent than to give life to unwanted conditions through speech. This is not avoidance, it is mastery. The one who understands the power of words speaks only what they wish to experience. There is a vast difference between speaking from a state of fulfillment and speaking from a state of longing. Many affirm their desires while still identifying with lack. They say, "I want to be wealthy," but the very structure of that sentence implies that they are not. They say, "I hope to win," but hope acknowledges uncertainty. True creation does not come from wishing or hoping, it comes from knowing. The words must match the state of already having. Instead of saying, "I want," one must say, "I have." Instead of saying, "I will be," one must declare, "I am." The shift may seem subtle, but its effects are profound. The subconscious mind responds to the present tense, to statements of already established truth. This is why affirmations, when used correctly, are so powerful. They are not merely positive statements. They are tools for reconditioning the mind. When spoken with conviction, they impress upon the subconscious the reality that is being assumed. But for them to be effective, they must be believed. It is not enough to repeat words mechanically while still holding doubts internally. The words must be felt as truth. They must be spoken with the authority of one who knows their reality is already unfolding. Gratitude is one of the most potent forms of speech. To express gratitude for something before it appears is to confirm its reality before it is seen. The one who gives thanks in advance is demonstrating faith in the unseen, and faith is the bridge between assumption and manifestation. When gratitude is spoken with sincerity, it accelerates the process of creation. It shifts the mind from seeking to receiving, from hoping to knowing. Every word of thanks is a statement that the desire is already fulfilled. It is not a request. It is a confirmation. Complaining, on the other hand, is one of the most destructive forms of speech. Every complaint reinforces the reality being complained about. The more one speaks of their difficulties, the more those difficulties persist. Complaints are affirmations in disguise, but instead of affirming success, they affirm struggle. The disciplined individual refuses to complain, not because they ignore reality, but because they understand that speaking of lack, instead they direct their words toward what they wish to experience. They use every spoken word as an instrument of creation, never allowing themselves to affirm anything that contradicts their desires. There is immense power in the words that are spoken internally as well. Thoughts are silent words, and they shape reality just as effectively as spoken statements. The inner dialogue must be aligned with the desired state. The subconscious listens not only to what is said aloud, but also to what is repeated mentally. If the internal conversation is filled with doubts and fears, those doubts and fears will manifest externally. The inner voice must be disciplined just as strictly as the outer speech. It must constantly affirm the fulfillment of the desire, rejecting any thought that contradicts it. Mastery of words is mastery of life. The individual who speaks with awareness, who chooses their words carefully, who refuses to affirm anything other than their desired reality, will see their world transform. Every spoken statement is an act of creation. The question is not whether words have power. The question is whether that power is being used consciously or unconsciously. Those who understand this truth no longer speak idly. They no longer allow their words to describe the world as it appears. Instead, they use their words to shape the world as they intend it to be. There is a truth that has been spoken since the beginning of time, a truth that has shaped the course of history, a truth that has transformed the lives of those who dared to believe it. It is a truth that stands firm, unshaken by circumstances, undiminished by doubt, undisturbed by fear. And that truth is this: what you believe in your heart, what you hold fast in your mind, what you claim with the certainty of faith, these things will come to pass. The power of belief is greater than any force in the world. It moves mountains, changes destinies, and lifts the soul from despair to victory. Yet, so many live their lives without fully grasping this power. They look at the world and see only limitation. They measure their future by their past. They listen to the voices of doubt, the whispers of failure, the echoes of fear, and they allow these voices to shape their reality. But the truth is, your life is not determined by what is happening around you. It is determined by what is happening within you. The way you see yourself, the way you think about your life, the way you speak about your future, these things set the course for what you will experience. There are many who walk through life feeling defeated, feeling as though they have no control, feeling as though they are subject to the whims of chance. They say, things never work out for me. They say, I always fall short. They say, I don't have what it takes. And they don't realize that with every word they are setting the course for their lives. They are declaring their own defeat before they even take a step forward. They are speaking failure into existence before they ever give success a chance. But there is a greater way. There is a higher truth. There is a power that is waiting to be awakened within every person. A power that does not rely on circumstances. A power that does not depend on luck. A power that comes from faith. Faith in the unseen. Faith in the promise of things yet to come. Faith in the certainty that what is believed will be made real. Some people go through life waiting for a sign, waiting for something to change, waiting for a breakthrough before they will believe. But that is not how the power of faith works. Faith does not wait for evidence. Faith creates the evidence. Faith does not wait for the world to change. Faith changes the world. There is no victory without belief. There is no breakthrough without faith. There is no transformation without the certainty that it is already done. What does it mean to walk in this faith? It means to speak with confidence, even when you do not yet see the results. It means to stand firm in the face of opposition and declare that you are more than a conqueror. It means to lift your eyes beyond the temporary struggles and see the victory that is already secured. When you believe, truly believe, there is no room for doubt. When you hold fast to faith, there is no room for fear. When you walk in confidence, there is no force in this world that can stand against you. There are those who will say, but what about the odds? What about the statistics? What about all the reasons why it might not happen? And to them, the answer is simple. There is no statistic that can override faith. There is no probability that can stand against the power of belief. There is no limitation that can hold back the person who has decided in their heart and in their mind that they will not be defeated. History is filled with stories of those who overcame the impossible, not because they had all the advantages, not because the odds were in their favor, but because they refused to accept failure. They refused to believe that they were limited by their circumstances. They refused to listen to the voices that said, it can't be done. And because they believed, they triumphed. Because they held fast, they overcame. Because they never wavered, they saw their dreams become reality. The power of faith is not a weak thing. It is not a wish, not a hope, not an empty desire. It is a force, an unshakable certainty, a confidence that cannot be broken. It is the belief that what has been spoken in faith will come to pass. It is the certainty that what is held in the heart will manifest in reality. It is the assurance that the promises of tomorrow are just as real as the struggles of today. So many live their lives never stepping into this power, never claiming the victory that is already theirs, never believing that they are more than what their circumstances suggest. They listen to the world, they listen to the doubters, they listen to their fears, and they shrink back. But this is not the way to live. This is not the path to victory. There is a higher way, a greater way, a way that leads to fulfillment, success, and peace. And that way begins with belief. It begins with the decision to stop seeing yourself as limited and to start seeing yourself as victorious. It begins with the choice to reject fear and to embrace faith. It begins with the commitment to speak only words of life, to think only thoughts of success, to hold only visions of triumph. When this shift happens, everything changes. The impossible becomes possible. The unseen becomes seen. The victory that once seemed distant becomes reality. It is not the world that must change first. It is the mind, the heart, the soul. And when that transformation takes place, there is no force that can hold back the blessings, the breakthroughs, the success that is already waiting to be claimed. It is time to rise up. It is time to walk in faith. It is time to declare victory, not because of what is seen, but because of what is known within. The power has always been there, waiting, ready to be awakened. The question is not whether it is real. The question is whether you will believe it. There is a law that governs all things, a law that has been in place since the beginning of time, a law that cannot be broken or bent. A law that works whether one believes in it or not. It is the law of sowing and reaping, the law that declares that whatever a person plants in their mind, in their heart, in their words, in their actions, that is exactly what they will receive in return. It is an unchangeable truth, a principle that cannot be escaped. What is placed into the soil of the mind will grow, and it will produce after its own kind. A person cannot plant seeds of doubt and expect to reap a harvest of confidence. A person cannot speak words of failure and expect to walk in success. A person cannot hold thoughts of fear and expect to live in peace. The law is simple. Whatever is sown is also reaped. This is not a law of punishment. It is a law of order, a law of balance, a law of creation. It is the way life is designed. There are those who go through life believing that their struggles are random, that their hardships are unfair, that their difficulties are placed upon them by some outside force. But if one were to trace the path of their thoughts, if one were to examine the words they have spoken, if one were to study the beliefs they have held, they would see that their reality is not an accident. It is the result of seeds planted long ago. The mind is like a field, and it will grow whatever is planted within it. If the seeds of doubt are planted, they will grow into a harvest of hesitation. If the seeds of fear are planted, they will grow into a harvest of limitations. If the seeds of lack are planted, they will grow into a harvest of struggle. But the opposite is also true. If the seeds of faith are planted, they will grow into a harvest of confidence. If the seeds of expectation are planted, they will grow into a harvest of opportunities. If the seeds of gratitude are planted, they will grow into a harvest of abundance. The problem is that most people do not recognize the power of the seeds they are planting. They speak words carelessly, unaware that every spoken word is a seed taking root. They think thoughts without discipline, unaware that every thought is shaping their reality. They hold on to beliefs that were given to them by others, unaware that those beliefs are determining the course of their lives. If one were to take a step back and examine the harvest they are reaping in their life, they would find that every experience, every success, every failure, every moment of joy, every moment of struggle, all of it is a result of the seeds they have planted over time. The good news is that no one is trapped in their current harvest. The soil of the mind is always ready for new seeds. The moment one begins to plant seeds of faith, of victory, of expectation, of gratitude, the harvest begins to change. It may not happen overnight, just as a farmer does not see a crop grow in an instant. But the moment a new seed is planted, the process of transformation begins. Some people look at their circumstances and say, but this is just the way things are. They say, I've always struggled. They say, I've never been lucky. They say, I don't see how things could ever change. But the truth is, the moment they change what they are planting, they will change what they are harvesting. The soil does not care what kind of seed is placed in it. It simply grows whatever is planted. The moment one starts speaking words of victory instead of words of defeat, the moment one starts thinking thoughts of confidence instead of thoughts of doubt, the moment one starts believing in the possibilities instead of the limitations, that is the moment the harvest begins to shift. But there must be patience. No farmer plants a seed one day and expects a full-grown crop the next. There is a process. There is a time of watering, a time of nurturing, a time of faith. There may be days when nothing seems to be happening, days when the soil appears untouched, days when doubt tries to creep in. But the one who understands the law of sowing and reaping does not give up during this time. They continue to plant, continue to water, continue to trust, because they know the harvest is coming. There are those who say they have tried, that they have spoken positive words, that they have believed for better things, but nothing has changed. But the question is, have they remained faithful to the process? Have they continued to plant even when they saw no immediate results? Have they uprooted their seeds with words of doubt? Have they looked at the soil and declared that nothing was happening, unaware that the moment they did so, they stopped the growth? It is not enough to plant good seeds occasionally. It must become a way of life. The farmer does not plant a single seed and expect a full harvest. He plants many. He sows continually, knowing that every seed matters, that every planted thought, every spoken word, every act of faith is building toward a future reality. There is no mystery to success, no secret to transformation. It is a simple law that has worked since the beginning of time. Whatever is planted will grow. Whatever is nourished will flourish. Whatever is believed will be made real. The only question is, what seeds are being planted today? Because whether one realizes it or not, the seeds of today determine the harvest of tomorrow. This truth is not reserved for a select few. It is not for only the lucky or the fortunate. It is a law that applies to every person, in every situation, at every stage of life. And the moment one decides to take control of the seeds they are planting, the moment they choose to speak life instead of death, to think victory instead of defeat, to believe in the unseen rather than focus on the seen, that is the moment their world begins to change. It has been said that those who sow sparingly will reap sparingly, but those who sow abundantly will reap abundantly. And so the challenge is simple. Plant generously. Plant thoughts of greatness. Plant words of power. Plant faith. Plant confidence. Plant gratitude. Plant expectation. And in due season, the harvest will come. It is a promise. It is a law. It cannot fail. The only question is, will it be embraced? The truth has been laid before us, clear and unshaken. There is no mystery in the way life unfolds, only principles that have been in place since the beginning of time, waiting to be embraced. Whether it is the power of belief, the authority of words, the certainty of faith, or the unbreakable law of sowing and reaping, one thing remains constant. We are not victims of chance, but creators of our own reality. The life we live is the direct result of the thoughts we hold, the words we speak, the expectations we embrace, and the faith we cultivate. For too long, many have allowed fear, doubt, and limitation to shape their path. They have spoken of defeat without realizing they were inviting it. They have held on to fear without realizing they were nurturing it. They have believed in lack, and so lack has remained. But this is not the way things must continue. The moment one decides to align their thoughts, words, and beliefs with victory instead of defeat, with faith instead of fear, with expectation instead of doubt, that is the moment everything begins to shift. The power has always been there. It has always been within, waiting to be awakened. There is no obstacle too great, no past mistake too defining, no circumstance too difficult that it cannot be overcome by the power of faith and belief. But it must be chosen. It must be embraced. It must be lived out each day through thoughts that empower, through words that empower, through actions that declare the certainty of what is yet unseen. There is a life of abundance, of success, of peace, of joy waiting to be claimed. It does not come by wishing. It does not come by waiting. It comes by knowing. It comes by believing. It comes by stepping forward with confidence, speaking only what aligns with the desired reality, planting only what will produce a harvest of greatness. This is not a truth for some. It is a truth for all. It is unchanging, unwavering, unfailing. The question is not whether it works. The question is whether it will be applied. The choice belongs to each person. And for those who choose to walk in it, to embrace it fully, to speak and live as if the promise is already fulfilled, their world will be transformed. It is not a matter of if, but when. The harvest is sure. The promise is certain. The power is real. The only thing left is the decision to claim it.